Last week, we told you about Utah becoming a state 128 years ago and what it was like in 1896. And now Craig Wirth here tells us what it was like when the state's first legislature met to pass the state's first laws.
Of course, we know in just hours our legislature meets again. If you think the folks on the Hill passed some unusual laws this year, well, you should have been around in 1896. Craig, what should we know about that year?
Well, I wasn't there exactly in 1896, but that first legislature was so excited to be a state that they realized they had forgot to pick a date to meet.
Oops.
It was a rough beginning. Utah was the new shining star, the 45th state. But we had no state laws or a state legislature or a place where they meet. Can't be a state without those. So it was 1896, brand new state. No new capital, though, so City Hall would suffice. But it was time to get down to business. New laws for the new state. This was our first legislature in 1896. Actually, just the House. The Senate was apparently too cool to pose with them, so they found a woman with a bicycle to fill out the picture. Actually, the Senate was in a mess. The Salt Lake Herald newspaper blamed the Republicans and compared it all to diseased skin. The blotch is forming on the cuticle of the Republican individual, commonly known as the GOP. The managers of candidates will shortly begin to do the pinching and scratching. Great journalism. But somehow they got to the important stuff. For example, this was a new state with herds and herds of new sheep. So early on, they passed a law that you have to dip your sheep at least once a year, and our good citizens responded. Ads advertised that these were law-abiding sheep folks dipping with only the best, Carsolium dip. And there were miners everywhere in Utah, kind of a gruff and rough crowd, so they passed a law about minors working with miners. Now, no one under the age of 14 could work in a mine, nor could a female. Apparently, this was all happening no thanks to a crummy, dull Senate. Not so in the House. They were duking it out. Even took time to censor senators who had only started a few days before. And there were more laws. As you can guess, a state needs more than 2 laws on the book. They looked around. They found there were dairy cows all over Utah in 1896. And the consumer-friendly legislature didn't want anyone getting skimmed by skim milk scams. So, if you skim the cream off the milk and sell it, you had to put the word skimmed milk in Gothic letters. That's the law. Or you have to face not less than a $10 fine. They were cranking out consumer laws left and right, such as one about candy. You no longer could put poisonous ingredients in candy. That was a tough law. This was the real legislature at work. Oh, and lobbyists. There must have been an incredible meat lobby. What? They repealed meat inspection. That had been on the books as a law to prevent the exposure for sale of unwholesome or diseased meats in cities having a population of 10,000 inhabitants or over. Yeah, they repealed it. Now you could sell all the unwholesome or diseased meat you want to sell. Oh, and they did get sideways in fiscal matters in 1896. They sent our state's assessment for the World's Fair of 1896, and they put the budget in a tailspin. There it is, an overdraft on account of the World's Fair warrant, 4 cents. And just like today, it's spend, 2 cents here, 2 cents there. Pretty soon it's 4 cents. Well, finally, the legislature adjourned. The Senate one final convulsion, and the Tribune wrote the agony was over. Oh, we got an awful lot to be thankful for from that first legislature. For where would we be in Utah today if you could still poison your candy, if you could sell skim milk without telling people, and most importantly, if you didn't dip your sheep? Oh yeah, there was no pulling the wool over the eyes of the first legislature back then in 1896. Craig Wirth, ABC 4 News.
Wow. Wow, what a
so
time.
much, so much precious candy.
I still don't know what you mean by how you dip sheep, but maybe I don't want to know.
That's okay.
No, that's all right. Nor poison your candy.
Oh my God! You know, we don't see writing like that in journalism today.
no.
You know? Maybe we should bring it back.
Let's bring that back. We'll bring back big words and words like convulsion.
That's our goal for this week.
There we go.
Okay, thank you very much,
Boy,
Craig.
Alana, how can you top that?
Top notch, Craig. Craig, I almost brought my bicycle into the shot, just like that woman in the
Yeah,
Senate.
I know. Can you imagine?
I
Hey,
thought,
come over here.
Why
We want a
not?
picture with you.
Exactly. Fine. I'll bring my bike anywhere I go. Loved the story, Craig, as always. And